Three quick points. First of all, I by and large agree with that. I've met with the Tea Party, done town hall meetings. There are a lot of people who are motivated, actively involved in public service. I don't agree with everything they stand for, but nor are they sort of one size fits all. The Tea Party means a lot of things to a lot of different people. It's an active group of people who are involved, and I'll listen to them as I listen to all active groups. I think it's good that they're involved and interested in what they're doing. If we had a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution right now, we would have to cut $1.3 trillion out of the budget right now, today. What would that do to our economy? And I appreciate the support for that position. That would devastate our economy. We have got to get to a fiscally responsible position in a responsible way. The third point I want to make about Dick's comments about whether or not Pierce County has a balanced budget. Who here thinks that the state of Washington has been fiscally responsible? Yeah. But, and I know it's funny because they clapped in like 15, 20 more seconds. You know, they balance their budget every year. Every year. They're constitutionally required to balance a budget every year, just like Dick. The point is, did you plan far enough in advance? I don't think the state did, and I don't think the Pierce County Council did. What I'm talking about is a shortfall that requires last-minute cuts and major adjustments instead of careful planning. That's all I'm talking about.
Again, I'll just remind you, we're going to try to keep this civil.
That was kind of my fault. I apologize.
What do you think of the healthcare bill now? My rates for my wife and I are going up $132 a month, which is a 44.5% increase.
Rates for insurance were going up dramatically for years before the healthcare bill. So to blame it all on the healthcare bill misses the problem that existed with our healthcare system, number one. Number two, the healthcare bill is going to have to be fixed. It's going to have to be amended. But there were a couple of basic principles there that I thought were important. Number one, cost control. You know, people have complained about the size of the bill. A lot of the stuff in that bill is efforts to legitimately get costs under control. One of the biggest ways, get us off of fee-for-service medicine, start paying for quality instead of quantity. There are countless programs in there that will push us in that direction. Second principle, you gotta get everybody covered. If you have 50 million people outside of the healthcare system, they're getting healthcare. They're just getting it in an incredibly wasteful and inefficient way. Healthcare is the most difficult public policy problem that we have to face. I honestly stepped up to it, listened to people, tried to change a system that was fundamentally broken. That, I think, needed to be done, and more work still needs to be done.
When you ever mandate requirements on anybody, costs are going to go up. I'll give you an example. I did call my 24-year-old son, my youngest, and say, hey, if you want to go on dad's insurance, you can do that, but we're not going to do that. You know, to age 26, you're now required to cover a child. Let me tell you, that's they should have been out of the house a long time ago. Those kind of mandates become expensive. Yeah, and so you're right, and so it comes down to.
I personally have to pay for it.
And so it comes down to we need healthcare reform. We start out with the first one, which is a lower cost, and that's tort reform. And all attempts at tort reform have been not allowed at the national level because the American Trial Lawyers Association fund a lot of candidates who get elected. That's one more thing. State portability, and we need to have interstate competition. Those will drive down the cost, and no requirements. In this state, by the way, when my son moved to Idaho, his cost went in half because of less requirements to cover less items. Thank you.
Banks are holding a lot of money.
That was good.
Again, we're trying to get through these questions, and so if people keep clapping and interrupting, we're just not going to get there. So, banks are holding a lot of money and are reluctant to loan out. Are interest rates too low? People are not saving. There's about 90% of people still working. That's the question, I guess.
Well, let me tell you, people are actually saving more money than ever. credit card debt is, an interesting thing was happening, the national debt's going up. Part of it's being funded by all the money that's being soaked up from the banks to the national government. So the people doing the borrowing right now is us through our federal government. Credit card debt is going down for the last year and a half, 2 years. People are actually cutting back on their purchases. They're trying to get their households in order. And banks are hoarding money, and corporations are hoarding money because they're afraid to lend it. They truly are afraid to lend. You talk to them, they say, you know, the new restrictions, new requirements, we went from being very unrestricted to the point right now that it's being overly restricted. Let's hope we can find a happy medium where where business will want to expand, number one, and banks will be willing to lend, and people will make investments, and that will create the wealth. Wealth creation is what we need. The excess wealth gets taxed and helps balance the budget. We can grow our way out of this deficit.
Well, I actually agree that the pendulum has swung too far back in the other direction, and part of the reason it swung that far back is because of how far it has swung the other way in terms of loans going out that were totally unsecured, Alt-A, subprime. They were just spitting money out there in a way that put us at great risk, so they swung it back in the other direction to get it under control. I think the other problem is it's going to take some time to work out our economic problems for actually the reason that Dick stated. We had a record level of privately held debt throughout the early part of this decade. A statistic that I saw was, on average, during the history of this country, the ratio of privately held debt to GDP is about $1.25 to $1.50. 1920s, it got up to $2.50. Then we had the crash. Early part of this decade, there was over $3 of privately held debt for every dollar of GDP. People had credit card debts, they were taking money out of their houses, they were borrowing, and now, like Dick said, they're pulling back, and they probably should. We cannot have a debt-based economy, privately or publicly.
What do you think about the idea of having a review period of 1 day for every 20 pages of a bill?
Well, look, I actually think that is one of the greatest challenges of my job. I always remember I happened to be walking down a hall as a freshman member of Congress who's passed me a few years back, with an incredibly frustrated look on her face, talking with a staff member. She said, "I just feel like I'm not doing anything well," okay? It's sort of the nature of the country, I could go on at incredible length, all of the issues that we have to work on in this district. And it is hard, but we have to govern, okay? We cannot say, well, you know what, healthcare is too big, too complicated, we're just going to leave the system the way it is and hope for the best, okay? We have to govern. Now, I think we should take time. I've long been a supporter of a 72-hour rule when bills came out. The irony, of course, the irony for me is, the issue that has inflamed people the most on this is healthcare. We had 3 months to look at the healthcare bill. I never get 3 months to look at a bill that I vote on, of any size. But the problem is very real, which is why you need a member of Congress who works hard, who understands the issue, who has a staff that works hard and understands those issues. And I think that is a real strength that I bring to this campaign. If you've come to my town hall meetings, people come at me from every conceivable angle, and I have the answers. I know the issues because I've worked hard to make sure that I do.
Thank you. Hold your applause, I know you. Well, I agree, 72 hours at least, maybe up to 5 days. We don't need 2,000-page bills. Any bills that get that big are usually because they're laden with too many things. We need more separate, easily understandable bills that can get the job done, not laden with all the what they call Christmas tree ornaments. On the county council, we do things in committee, we put it out there on the internet. A week or two later, then we have a final vote. Any final amendments, those are published at least 24, 48 hours in advance. No major amendments are allowed to at least 3 days. That's the way I operate. Open, public government. Everything is televised, and everything is out there for the people to review. No surprises. The best government is one that's open to the people.
What's your opinion